My name is Jack Como. I'm the Director of iWarehouse Solutions here at the Raymond Corporation. Today we're going to talk about the Raymond product RTLS. RTLS stands for Real-Time Location Sensing. So part of this presentation is part of our ongoing live events that we're doing here on LinkedIn through our Intralogistic Solutions portfolio. We also have a philosophy that we've been operating from that concentrates on optimize, connect, and automate. Today we'll talk about both of those in great detail and how RTLS fits into that. As we go through our presentation, if anybody has any questions about what we're talking about or wants some clarification, please, I encourage you to use the chat function, ask those questions, and we will get to them as best and as fast as we can. I would like to introduce Josh Peck. Josh is going to be answering some of the questions that you and I all have about this solution today and talk a lot about it. So Josh, please introduce yourself and tell us what RTLS is and how it works.
Yes, so I'm Josh Peck. I'm responsible for about 2 solutions that we have right now with our locationing and positioning and telematics solution. Most of you already know that telematics is iWarehouse is the telematics solution that we have on our forklift trucks. And now we're going to be talking about RTLS today. So to kind of help frame the discussion and talk about what it is, I actually have an infographic that we could bring up and share. And this will discuss primarily the 3 main components of the system, how it works, and then some of the features and benefits you get from that. So the RTLS system is an ultra-wideband network. We specifically chose ultra-wideband because most of our customers have Wi-Fi in their building, and we want to make sure to not clog up that network or interfere at all with the network and the positioning calculations. So how we achieve that is by installing 3 main components. You have your anchors, your tags, and your bridges. Anchors are really sensors in the warehouse that are in a fixed and known position. By putting those all throughout the warehouse and knowing their precise location, the tags can then send their location to up to 3 anchors and time of flight measurements multiple times per second, calculate the precise location of any tagged truck, asset, or person. And finally, there's bridges. Bridges take all the data and communicate it back to the server. That way, through the user interface, you can see where the trucks are in real time and also capture all that data for reporting. And some of the features that we're able to provide with that are see below in geofencing, tracking, and forklift and asset tracking. And what we like to say is our customers' days are defined by a series of key events, such as when they start a checklist through their day, or they put a pallet away, or pick a pallet, or load a pallet. If you can know precisely where that truck, where that asset, or where that person is at that given moment, it provides you real granular insights into your operations. Additionally, with the very precise geofencing, we're able to take actions on select models of Raymond trucks that allow them to stop when they approach that zone. And as we're working with this with more customers and gathering feedback, we're developing more types of zones that can help our customers. Also, you have the ability to track any forklift, any brand whatsoever, and understand where that is in your operation and what it's doing throughout the day. And finally, we also have the ability to track high value assets. Now, there's 2 different ways you can do this. We have a general purpose lower cost tag that transmits its location on a much more infrequent basis to conserve battery life, but also you're going to know where your assets are, because if you have a warehouse management system that has a timestamp for where that pallet is, and you also know at the exact same time where the forklift is that put it away, you can marry up that data and precisely know where all of your inventory and assets are.
Hey Josh, so in the market today, I've seen a lot of different offerings that are similar to this, specifically using like Wi-Fi triangulation and Wi-Fi versus ultra wideband. What's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, Wi-Fi is out there. Most people already have Wi-Fi in their building, and it's able to provide accuracy, but that could be anywhere between 30 to 50 feet away. My background, I have an IT background inside of warehousing and trying to understand where devices are and what precise access point they're connected to. Those devices like to stay connected to one access point as long as they can, so they're not losing any data packets. So that can really impact the locationing. Additionally, ultra-wideband allows for much more precise locationing because it's on its own network. It's not reliant upon other devices slowing down that traffic or assuming bandwidth. And it can pull the locations multiple times per second. That way you can get down to 1 meter accuracy that's just not offered in Wi-Fi tracking.
So in the beginning, I talked about how RTLS fits into our optimize, connect, automate philosophy. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that works with all the other intralogistic solutions we have?
Sure. Well, I have another infographic that I'd like to share now that kind of lays out everything that we're talking about here. So as you can see, this intralogistic solution, there's a lot of different core components that are associated with that. That allows our customers to pick what they need to satisfy their application and what solution they're looking for. When you're talking about the location data, it can tell you a lot about where the truck is at any given point in the operation. If you marry that up with something like telematics, something like that on telematics, and I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit on that one to get a right here. So if you put that in with telematics, and we can start capturing data about the operators, what they're using, or in the event they have any impacts, you can start identifying areas of trouble in your facility precisely, and it could be across all of your fleet.
Awesome, Josh. Thanks. So I want to get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. So
sure.
Let's say I get my infrastructure in place and I've got RTLS set up in my warehouse. I know that a group of people in the warehouse business, especially the employee health and safety group, and the people who have that title are going to have a vested interest in something like this. Can you talk a little bit about how an application in that perspective works with RTLS?
Yes, I can do that right now. Actually, we talk about understanding where the impacts are throughout a day if the truck is having any. An impact is it's just a word saying that the truck experienced contact with something it wasn't designed to come into or come into contact with. So really, that could be any number of things. It could be a crack in the floor. It could be your racking. It doesn't necessarily mean it came into contact with something else. So that can help understand how your operators are actually operating the trucks. And it can also highlight what types of training you need to do. Is there a particular maneuver that they're struggling with? Is it when they're entering the aisle? Is it when they're exiting the aisle? Is it through a few key intersections? One thing that I think helps describe this is kind of how we use it inside of our own facilities. And I have a video that we can show of how we use it. And I'm going to walk through this a little bit here. So we got about a 3-minute video, and what you're seeing here, let me reset that a bit. There, we got a 3-minute video, and what you're seeing right now is a bird's eye view of our G2 facility. And right now, these are all the truck types that are in the various aisles. This gives, as you can see, as the trucks are moving, you understand where they are. You see right now OPRs, you see stand-up counterbalance trucks. But what we can do is filter this out, some key trucks that we really want to keep an eye on. So if we hit filter right now, we're able to go through our groups and deselect all the trucks that we don't want to see. Let's just zero in on our stand-up counterbalances. So now you can see our stand-up counterbalances are primarily working in the inbound dock here, and then the outbound docks here and here. When you were talking about the EH&S perspective here, Jack, this right here we're utilizing as a keep in, keep out zone. And you can see from some of the reports that we have, we're able to track how long operators are in those specific zones, and we can force them to slow down and stop while they are in it. Those are some key pieces of information that you can have about your operation, and more importantly, how your operators are using it. Additionally, we have some more reports available, such as the travel distance, that you can talk about how far have you traveled, and the idle time. We'll have an example of that report a little later in this presentation as well. And you have the reports and the live view. Jack, those are really handy. They are. You can see what's going on in your operation and know where these assets are. But where some of the power of the system comes into is in our analytics. Now let's show the heat map that we have. This heat map represents all the traffic and where these stand-up counterbalances have been. So real quick visually, you can identify where your hotspots are that you need to pay attention to. And specifically, we've identified this loading dock right here, along with this intersection. This is a main intersection in the building, and all the traffic has to go through here to traverse the building. And most of our product goes out the door here as well. So this doesn't only tell you about what's happening inside of the building, but this helps you identify, are the yard personnel that you have moving the trailers around that you're loading, is that being done in a timely enough fashion to clear this dock? The last thing you want to do is have product restricting your travel inside of your main aisles. It's hard enough for these folks to navigate the warehouse, and things are coming up unexpectedly all the time. We want to remove obstacles so that way they can have the best experience inside the building they possibly can.
That's great. All right, so let's say I've got a truck that's really tall, and I've got a door that's really short, and I want to stop that really tall truck going through that really short door. I know it sounds funny, but believe me, I've heard a lot of customers talk about this exact scenario. Can you talk a little about how RTLS might work with something like that?
Yeah, sure. And I'm sorry I'm smiling for that. My only reason was I have a background that I was in distribution, and I know the door you're talking about now. I had one that was a speed door. As the driver would approach it, the door would come up, and then the operator would go through. The issue was sometimes the operators didn't slow down fast enough. The door didn't get all the way up, and then the truck went right into it. And now you've got to repair a door. It happened regularly. This is a perfect solution for that. If you put a keep in, keep out zone right there, it'll force the truck to stop, wait for that door to open, and then the operator has to drive 1 mile an hour through that until they clear the zone, retake the handle, and then they can resume normal operation.
Hey, Josh, what about a geofencing example? Can you show one, or is there an example you have that is ready available, or just talk about it?
Yeah, sure. I can show you one right now that we've got. Let me go back to that video real quick, but the still will, I don't know, let's talk about this. I'll share the still of the heat map instead. So if you look on this screenshot here, there is a keep in, keep out zone right at the bottom, and there's one right here. In both of these situations, these areas were identified as potential at-risk areas that we wanted to control and ensure the operators were assisted in operating properly. So as the trucks are exiting the aisle here, they are forced to stop and move at 1 mile an hour until they exit properly. This helps the operator be aware of any traffic that might be coming perpendicular to their vision and make sure they're not trying to exit too quickly.
Okay. That's great. So all those EH&S people on the line, I hope that helps you understand this from a perspective that you might identify with a little better. And I want to continue to please ask anybody who has questions to put them in the comment section, and we will answer those to our best ability as soon as we can. So switching gears a little bit here, where you came from, Josh, let's talk about the operations side of the business. So
yes.
How does a warehouse customer use this to improve operations?
Well, let's start here. As we get, one thing that as you're an operations manager, you want to make sure is that your material handling equipment is actually moving. You want to monitor things like idle time, or you want to know how far they've traveled. So here is a report that offers idle time by hour. So if you look at this report, this is telling you on an hour by hour basis, what percentage of time were your trucks idle? When you run this report, it's real easy to figure out, hopefully, when the facility is shut down, and in this case, I can assure you it is. Between the hours of 1 and 5, you can see that the trucks are virtually stationary. But throughout your day, and you can see from this facility that the start of the day is the most busy for them, and then they progressively tail off as during shift change and break and lunch. But this really helps you understand, what is your fleet actually doing? And when you can do something like combine this with telematics, not only can you see if it was idle, but you can also determine who was logged into it. This will help you work with those operators to determine, hey, is there anything getting in your way from doing your job? What can we help you to do better? It's not always just to look at the operator, understanding what they're doing. We really want to assist people in doing their jobs. Sorry, I'm having difficulty here with my mouse. There we go.
Thanks. All right. So one thing that I was thinking about from a perspective of operating inside the warehouse, I know that a goal that a lot of operations managers have is to slot and make sure slotting is appropriate and that they're making the best use of their warehouse for moving and slow moving products. Can you talk about how that might work with RTLS a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is obviously a very, very large request that our customers have. And you could see from the heat map, I showed before. There we go. So you can see where most of the traffic is in terms of where they're going. They're all following the drive aisles here, but there is, your kitting area right here is seeing more traffic than your kitting area here. And while that doesn't seem too much, understand it might just be the color contrast, but what you're trying to do is get your operators to move through the facility in a way to where they're not tripping all over each other. So it becomes really apparent quickly with a heat map if you have any pick slotting concerns or any pick sequence concerns, not only with the heat map, but also with the route playback. If an operator is having a difficult time making any of the productivity standards they may have, before we go ahead and try to figure out what they're doing, why don't we see the route they're taking? What if the slotting is not done correct? What if there's an obstruction blocking their way that you need to clear up? All of this becomes available when you're able to understand where the precise location of the forklift is throughout their day while they're picking.
Awesome. All right, Jeremiah has a really good question that I think this is an easy one for you. Does this also work with the 30-20-30-30 VGV solution?
Yes, it does. You can track any truck that you want. You'll be able to see that, no problem.
Okay, and Jeremiah, a little bit more on that. So from an automated solution, it actually could become very valuable to you with automated vehicles as well. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a 30-20 or 30-30. Of course, we want it to be, but it could go on any vehicle and do the same type of tracking and provide the same solution to you today. All right. Another question came up, Josh. Do you need to have the iWarehouse telematics system throughout your fleet in order to implement RTLS?
Well, you can use RTLS without iWarehouse, and certainly it'll work. However, there's a lot more benefits by bringing those two pieces together. I mean, first, it allows you to alert the operator as to what's going on, if they're in any type of zone. And then also, it really gives you just another data point to where you can understand your truck usage, your operator usage, and really marry up the precise location for key events that iWarehouse provides, such as any impacts, failed checklists, anything.
Great. You know, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but I know if I was sitting in the audience, I would be wondering, what's the accuracy of this?
Oh, yes. The accuracy, we're within 1 meter of the location of the truck, obviously environmentally dependent. We've got to remember that this is a line of sight based system. So we have to tailor this to your unique application. Okay, awesome. So given what's going on in the world today and what you talked about earlier about the pedestrian tags, I see a correlation happening. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how RTLS can work better for customers today, given using a pedestrian tag? Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think we all know that how we work has radically changed since April. I mean, Jack, you and I were together in Modex in Atlanta, kind of when all of this happened. And I'm sure you can tell by the lovely shade of green that I have right now, I'm not in the office anymore. But there are still some people that, you know, as our buying patterns have really, I guess you could say, heightened for e-commerce since we've been home, there are some people that just can't do their job remotely like we can. So about the April timeframe with our partner, we've pivoted and we've got a badge now that not only will provide the XY positioning to a server, alerts, and still get still provide alerts based upon its position to zone. These badges will actually alert when they get too close to each other. These badges come programmed to alert someone when they get within 6 feet of another person. That record could be captured to understand all of the different events throughout that day, who the people came into contact with. But it really helps our work, it really helps the associates that have to be on site to remember they have to stay apart from each other. How we do work anymore, it's fundamentally changed. So this solution will help remind them that they need to stay apart.
Awesome. All right, so Josh, do I have to go big on this? Do I have to outfit my entire warehouse, every person, every truck throughout the warehouse, or can I start out smaller?
Well, I mean, you certainly can. It gives you the whole picture of what's going on. But at the same time, we recognize there may only be certain areas that the customers want to look at, and this is a scalable solution. We get an application engineer on site, and we can determine what that coverage area is going to be and set it up specifically to your application. Additionally, with those badges and the situation you just spoke about in terms of alerting when they come too close to each other, that doesn't even require infrastructure. All that requires is a charged up badge. All
right. There's a question from Dave Sherman in the audience. He wants to know if RTLS in combination with iWarehouse on Raymond 8410 jacks prevent wrong-way travel down a one-way aisle.
Well, the system doesn't prevent the wrong way travel, but it would definitely capture it so that way you could determine what was causing it and then talk to the individual that did it. With iWarehouse, you'll be able to see who was operating that truck. And you, instead of having those traditional conversations for a startup where I'd remind everybody they couldn't do it, I could go talk to the specific person that did it and ensure compliance.
That's great. Okay, so those are all the questions that we had in the audience. Those are the questions I had for you, Josh. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about with RTLS before I summarize what we talked about?
Yeah, I think there's just one thing I want to talk about here is we spoke a little bit and I showed you the wheel and I showed you all the different technology solutions that we have and how we're offering an intralogistic solution. I know some customers might be a little bit scared right now in terms of seeing this level of infrastructure that they would need. And I wanted to provide two things that really help our customers on this. First, we have an entire team that's not only available to help you scale this solution to your proper application, we can also help you install it. We've already done this for other customers and we manage it fully around your schedule to make sure to not disrupt your operations and ensure you get a standardized infrastructure installation that'll help you do this. Now, after you get this solution and you pair it with telematics or any of our other solutions, you're probably going to be drowning in data. There's going to be a lot. So sometimes we have to help our customers understand the data that's coming at them. So we have a professional services team. And pretty much most of our customers are dealing with the same type of challenges. So we know what to look for. But at the same time, once they start looking at the data, they can identify the unique low-hanging fruit site by site for all the customers. So instead of looking at the entire picture, they can help you derive about 5 key KPIs to where if you can improve performance on this, oftentimes the system will almost pay for itself. One thing I like to say is everybody wants to talk about the geofence zones and being able to make sure that trucks don't go in and out of locations they shouldn't. The real value of this system is going to be from the incremental day over day operational improvements you get from understanding where those trucks are in your event-driven day.
Awesome. So there's a bunch of questions that came up that were talking about the professional services piece you just covered. So I just want to touch briefly on that again real quick. So we do have a dedicated professional services team that is highly knowledgeable about all of the solutions that are in the interlogistics wheel that Josh showed earlier. And each of them use each one of those solutions together to showcase and show how the data and the information that's collected can help the customer to meet their KPI goals. So in this particular case with RTLS, there may be a combination of RTLS with customers' WMS data and maybe even a labor management piece of data that they take in and they analyze and they look at with you and help you understand things like Prevent Thorite's question. How can we track time spending on picking particular SKUs? Is it possible? Does it give optimized route for picking items, say, for example, Kanban items? So that whole statement and the idea behind that is multiple data sets, multiple systems. The RTLS piece would certainly contribute to that and provide more intellectual data that you maybe wouldn't have had before from an operational perspective. And the professional services team would take that and help you walk through and lead through how to solve that. And then Kate's question was, does Raymond provide consultation with RTLS and other telematics data? Yes, absolutely. We do that on a regular basis with a dedicated team for each of our customers. So those are all the questions. And Josh, I want to thank you for your time today and your expertise on the topic. I do want to encourage everybody. We're going to have another LinkedIn Live event in December. We're going to be talking about Raymond Lean Management at that event. So to understand how to make your warehouse operations more lean and prepare better for automation, you should attend that event as well. And that is all we have for today. Again, thank you very much for your time, and everybody have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. See you, Jack.
Bye.